All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to What is Awakening? Hi, Aaron.
Hello, Mark. Great to see you again, as always.
Great to see you also. And thanks for showing up, everybody, to this conversation.
Yeah, so we announced Manifest Awakening last week, which is a follow up of our Forgive 2020 event from last year. And man, we're having things leveled up a little bit this year. We got some big guest speakers joining us for this 4-day event, and we're trying to do it even bigger than last year because I think this year most people might agree was an even more challenging year, full of even more wonderful catalysts. So we want to take advantage of that through this event next week, starting exactly a week from today. And so, yeah, today's conversation, we're just going to be sort of setting the foundation for what we're going to talk about next week with Michael Beckwith and Danielle Laporte and Mark and myself. And so the conversation today is, what is awakening and why is it so crucial and important right now? And how can each one of us get involved in this planetary awakening that's happening right before our eyes?
Yeah, yeah. And I'm really happy to have this conversation because, I think a lot of people think about awakening, Aaron, as like, that special thing that happens to Byron Katie or Eckhart Tolle or, Jesus or Buddha. We've got those token people that we point to. And then the ego goes, oh, well, that's awakening. And I'm just still fumbling
Yeah.
through trying to find my way. So, to really give a new definition of it, that's one of our focus is here today is to let people know that it really is very tangible for all of us.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. It can bring on a kind of unworthiness if we try to compare our awakening to, an Eckhart Tolle or Ramana Maharshi or something. And so I think it is helpful to talk about what we mean when we say awakening. And I'll let you give what your definition is, Mark. But my personal definition is just whenever someone has a true flash of insight or a realization through, it could happen in an infinite variety of ways. I mean, it could literally happen taking out the garbage. I've heard people give stories where they had their awakening doing something so mundane you would never guess.
Yeah.
But it's just having this flash of insight where you recognize that what you are, the I you refer to, your essence is something that transcends this body, that you are somehow beyond this body, more eternal. Some people have that recognition to the fullest. They see it completely so, blisteringly clear that they can't unsee it ever again, like in Eckhart Tolle. Some people just kind of barely glimpse it, but it's an unforgettable event that creates a burning hunger in us to return to that realization, because when we taste a little bit of our true nature, that what I am is eternal, what I am is not a body, it's so delicious to the soul that it creates this insatiable longing to return to it, which it
Mhm.
certainly did for me many years ago. So yeah, to me, that's all an awakening, a spiritual awakening is just having the realization that what I am is not just this body.
Yeah, yeah, nice, nice. I think that's a great definition. I think my definition would be, and my personal experience of awakening is really more about like steps along a path. And, they add up to create a wonderful experience of transformation. But one step along the path may be, like you're saying, a moment of insight where you think yourself unworthy and unlovable, but you have this sudden awareness of, wait a minute, I am love. I am lovable. This is what I am. So, anytime that you have an awareness, a realization of your spiritual truth, and it is juxtaposed against releasing a lie. I thought I was unworthy. Now I really believe I'm worthy. Any shifting from a false belief to the truth, those are awakening moments that add up to
Yeah,
create a new experience of life.
absolutely. And I talk about this all the time, that awakening is it should be such an enjoyable process,
Yeah.
that I always use the analogy of eating a delicious steak, or if you're vegan, a vegan cake or something. Um, Eating something delicious, right? You don't want to just scarf it down in one bite. You really want to enjoy it. And sometimes, we take smaller bites of the meals we enjoy because we want to just savor every moment we can with it. And I see that as how the source feels towards our awakening, that, yes, some rare beings who are probably coming from sixth density or whatever can have a one shot awakening. And that's also equally valid and an experience the creator wants to have. But for the vast majority of us, it seems to enjoy the process of unfolding and awakening slowly into its true nature, and having that stillness and peace of our true nature just permeate our sense of self over time, which has been more of the case for me since my awakening many years ago. So, we talked about how different things can spark an awakening, Mark. And I'd love for you to just share, like, what was it for you, and when was it that caused your awakening to sort of spark or set you off on your path?
Yeah, absolutely. For many of us, it is we experience the beginning of awakening by kind of hitting a rock bottom. Letting the ego
Oh
identity
yeah.
just take us down so hard that there's nowhere else to go, and that's where something shifts. And that was my experience in my mid 20s. A really hardcore addict, real self-destructive, and had bottomed out really so intensely that I wasn't suicidal by name, but I certainly was killing myself, no doubt about that. And would have happily just kind of thrown it all in if there were some way for it to occur. But through, the miracle of a little bit of truth telling to one friend about what I was really suffering from, and then finding a solution, and then, getting into 12-step recovery, which is where I would say mine began. And my spiritual life really started to open up within me. And then it was like I felt like my path was just attracting to it the next step. Read this book, study under this person. Like it just was a journey that I was so
Mm,
committed to. Like my spiritual path was just primary from, like, I'd say about 26 years old. And although other things were happening in my life, that was the main thing. And the way that I think of myself as being awakened or woke today is very, very simple for me, because I was a person who really hated myself, and I thought I was detested by God, and I was the unacceptable one. To be today, to know that I'm loved, to know that I'm valued, to know that it's impossible for me to feel unworthy, to love the triggers that come my
mm,
way and be able to handle them like Neo in the Matrix,
mm.
just sort of, bend and turn,
Effortless.
yeah, deal with them. And if they hit me and I react, I don't feel shame. I just address it. I apologize. I do whatever is right to do in the moment. Getting a little feedback. Not
Oh,
sure.
I'm not hearing it.
You're not? Okay.
No.
Yeah,
Maybe if you have the YouTube video open on another tab, that could be it.
not sure. Patrick, if you could help with that. Anyway, to complete mine, it's really, when I look back, mine was a journey of years. And it was
Yeah.
always, steps forward, steps back, steps forward, steps back. And then I hit this pocket where it's like, I know who I am, I know what's true, and that's what turns me on. And that's what I'm awakened to. Very different from where I came.
Yeah. Well, your story is such a, you had a very, you had some traumatic, painful experiences as a kid that led to your addiction and this, really rock bottom experience. And mine was kind of the opposite. I was raised in such a loving, God centered household. And that was actually what sparked my awakening. Was when I left my religion at 23, I had this huge identity crisis, an existential crisis, which many people listening can relate to. But yeah, the Christian paradigm was my whole worldview. And I was extremely devout in my faith. I was all about Jesus and preaching the gospel all the time. And when I lost that, it was sort of like, oh man, what is reality then? Is there a God? Is there anything good? Is love real? Did I make it up? Those
Mhm,
questions you
mhm,
grapple with. And so grappling with those questions, and really just, whenever you take away an ego identity, when you take an identity away from ego, ego is really built to be this like self-protected mechanism that has no cracks in it. Because the moment there's a crack in it, it's sort of like the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain. It's like it seems to be this huge, powerful being that you could never possibly overcome. And when you get to see its real nature, it's a complete illusion that actually has no power. So it really can't afford to let you in through the cracks. So it's
yeah,
got to protect its boundaries at all costs. So when we question our identities, the ego will throw a huge fit over it and try to torment you into backing away, basically bully you into backing away. I'm
yeah.
going to make your life hell if you keep down this path, right? I'm going to make this a miserable experience for you. So although I was seeking enlightenment teachings and listening to Eckhart Tolle and Alan Watts all the time, this existential depression in me from losing my identity as a Christian was growing and growing by the day. And I describe it as a feeling of hopelessness that I lived with, which it was just crushing me over time. And I've shared my story on like every podcast I've ever done, so I won't belabor it too much here. But I had that moment that I've talked about so much where I was listening to Eckhart Tolle on my break, and some flash of insight happened for me. And it was those years of depression, just like it was for you, Mark, of the years of addiction that got me to that rock bottom moment where I was seeking so hard for freedom. I wanted it so bad that at a certain point, the universe has to respond to your request. When you want it more than anything else, that's really what the universe is looking for. And so I experienced that collapse of the subject and the object. Everything just became completely transcendent. And I spent about 2 weeks in that state, completely unbroken. I mean, couldn't even remember what suffering was or that it ever happened to me. It was like total freedom. And then I, of course, started to, my mind started to come back online, and thoughts would appear that I didn't catch as an egoic thought. And I always say the first thought that came back was, I wonder if this will be my permanent state. If am I now enlightened? Is trying to claim it for itself. Yeah. And then slowly the ego came back online, but it gave me that burning hunger, that unforgettable experience that it's the pearl of great price. Like I'll do anything to return to that state. And if I can figure out how to get back to that state of perfection, I'm going to teach about it my whole life. And so I love using this analogy, Mark, of the butterfly in the cocoon, because it speaks to the slow journey that most of us take in our awakening, that we have to go through that dark night. We have to go through some suffering. And we see our planet is doing that right now. Yes. We are healing our collective shadows, which means to heal something, you got to see it. You got to become aware of what your shadows are. And so they manifest on the surface, and we kind of go, ooh, that's really hard to look at. Child trafficking, all these different kinds of corruption. We don't want to acknowledge that that's happening in us, but that's the only way to heal. And so to do that collectively means we first have to do that individually. And that's really what Manifest Awakening is all about, that we can manifest awakening on this planet by taking responsibility for our own awakening and therefore raising the vibration of the planet. And so using the butterfly analogy, a caterpillar, after it eats enough food, which we could use that as a metaphor for ego, consume, identify me, my attachments, desires. It gets so fat that it says, all right, now I got to go hibernate because I'm too fat, spins itself into a cocoon. And then it, starts the transformation process. And we watch the videos of a caterpillar breaking out of the cocoon, and we say, wow, what a beautiful thing to witness, right? And it is, but from the caterpillar's experience, it's not beautiful, is it?
Yeah.
It's about to die. It's suffocating. It can't move. It can't breathe. And so in that panic state of like, I'm going to die if I don't do something, it starts thrashing around and, trying to elbow its way out of the cocoon, and eventually breaks out. And then, whoa, I'm this transformed being now. I've become a butterfly. It's just like amazing to me how the universe implants these little microcosms, these little examples of what the journey of evolution is all throughout nature.
Yeah.
And so I want to talk about this next, Mark. How can we describe the way that our personal awakenings actually do affect and heal the whole planet simultaneously?
Yes. Did you have a thought on that, or you want me to?
No, I'm pitching it to you.
Awesome. Because I think that that's one of the ego's biggest games that it plays on us. It's like, oh, who am I? Or, this isn't going to make a difference. It won't matter. But the truth of the matter is that who you are and who we all are is a magnificent presence of infinite power in the one. And wherever one person has an awakening moment, an awakening evolution, whichever, any aspect of expansion or remembering who and what you are, that contributes to the collective upleveling of humanity in a way that your human self will never, ever comprehend. Perhaps it will take until like you lay down your body and look at your life and go, whoa, you mean that one day when I really believed I was love, all of humanity was blessed by that? I absolutely know without a doubt that that's how it works. And that's why we feel it's so important to bring people together, because if it can be so powerful with
Yeah.
one person just having a revelation of truth, what is possible when thousands of people come together and share? The Course in Miracles talks about we don't return to our home, to the truth of our love alone. We come two by two. We come together. And when we come together, it's like we can go higher
Mhm.
together than we could ever go alone.
Yeah. Well, even Ra talks about that in the Law of One. They call it the doubling effect.
Mm,
They say when two people bring their wills together in one intention to seek the creator or to seek healing or something, it has a doubling effect, which is really logarithmic, meaning like to the power of, right? So it's to the power of two when you and I come together with our intention.
yeah,
And so this example of healing yourself heals the world, it sounds sort of pie in the sky, Candyland. Oh, that sounds great, but I'm sure it's not really the way it works.
right.
But to give you a picture that this absolutely is the way that it works, I love pulling out the David Hawkins map of consciousness and the calibrations, because he pioneered this science of actually understanding the metaphysics of consciousness, power versus force or positive and negative, and how those two polarities affect consciousness. And we can even start with a simple example, right? Of the stadium example. If one person in a stadium is cheering for their team, probably not very loud, right? Probably very few people in the stadium are even going to notice.
Yeah.
But two people join in, 20 people join in, 200, 20,000. At a certain point, when enough voices join in, people on the highway can hear the stadium rumbling. It has this incredible power. We love witnessing those moments on TV where everyone's like joining in together. Something about that unity is so powerful because that is the way it works in consciousness.
Yeah.
So you may not be familiar with the map of consciousness, but if you can picture a line from 0 at the bottom to 1,000 at the top, David Hawkins talks about how the 200 level is the sort of the dividing line between power and force. So
Mhm.
below 200 are the levels of force or forceful states of consciousness. And those are the ones we would call negative: anger, pride, fear, separation, shame, guilt, etc. And force essentially is something that always acts against something, right? So anger is acting against something. Pride is acting against something. Fear against something. There's an other in the equation, right? I'm prideful against someone else. They're inferior to me, or angry or afraid. And those states of consciousness are very weak compared to the powerful states.
Mhm.
But currently, I did the calibration the other day. I think it was 78% when David Hawkins wrote it in the 80s, but now it's 71%, I believe, of the planet calibrate under 200. So are living in that forceful state of consciousness. So you hear that and you go, oh my gosh, we're doomed. 71% of people are in the negative of state of consciousness. Well, that doesn't sound very good. But when you understand the power of consciousness at higher levels, it actually not only offsets that, but dramatically overpowers it. And so beginning at 200, that's the level of courage, which is kind of the pivotal point where you're no longer afraid to look inside of you, to dive into the inner world. Where somebody below 200, it's just pure duality, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
They have no concept of a higher truth, something beyond the material world. It's always victim consciousness. My problems have nothing to do with me. It's all out there in the world. I'm a victim of the world I see. But above 200 or at 200, we have courage to say, wait a minute, maybe some of my problems actually are my own creation. Let me look inside myself. And then at 300, we have willingness, which is the willingness to see something for what it is, to accept it for what it is, right? Begin that healing process. When we move up to the 400 zone, that's where consciousness finally can have the realization that there is something that transcends the physical, and it's called truth or absolute truth. We call it reality sometimes. And so this is the realm where science is born, in the world of logic and reason, where we all acknowledge that there is an absolute standard for what's real and what's unreal, and we should follow what's real. So, hey, that's a really high vibrational state, but it still doesn't acknowledge the supremacy and reality of love, which happens at 500. That all truth ultimately comes from love, and all truth is pointing to love. as its fulfillment, right? So now let's talk about what happens at the 500 level. At a 500 level of consciousness, David Hawkins calibrated this as well. And if you know how to do the kinesiology muscle test that he made famous, you can verify all of this for yourself. You can feel your arm go strong when you make these statements and go weak when you make false statements. And it calibrates as true that one single person who's ascended their consciousness to a 500 level counterbalances 750,000 people who are calibrating below 200.
Yeah.
So, whoa, that's a huge impact. At a 600 level, which is the level of non-duality or peace of mind, one person at 600 is offsetting 10 million people calibrating under 200. And a person at 700 is offsetting 70 million people who calibrate below 200. So we see that these powerful states of consciousness are exponential or logarithmic. It's to the power of, to the power of, to the power of, so that by the time we get to a very high transcendent states of consciousness, I mean, we're talking about entire countries and nations of people whose frequencies were dropping the planetary vibration, and one person's able to raise it back up and keep it stable. So that's amazing, right? And so because of that, our current planetary population, even though, again, 71% of people are still under that 200 mark, our collective consciousness calibrates at 231 right now. So we're still above that crucial 200 point because of the very few people who are calibrating at states of 500 and above.
Yeah.
So there's a perfect, metaphysical example that you can see that, no, your awakening absolutely impacts the world, like you said, Mark, in ways you really can't even conceive of.
Yeah, I love that bringing that chart forward, because it's so cool and it's so clear how it explains it.
Yeah.
I will tell everyone who's here right now, if you're here even listening to this, you can be assured that you're on that path, because you would not be drawn to this conversation. So no matter how much the ego is arguing or telling you what is not working, blah, 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 you're here now. That thing that brought you here, that's what we're talking about. And that's what our program next week, Manifest Awakening, our 4-day event, designed to really support you to catapult and to go further in the vibration of what we're going to co-create.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're trying to build some momentum here collectively, that just like we did last year, take responsibility for what's manifesting in the world first inside of me. Yeah. I have no reason or right to judge any amount of corruption in the world or monopolies in the world if I have greed in me, right? That's the root of all of that stuff in the world. So it's like we take responsibility first inside of us, and then as we heal ourselves from those distortions, we're actually eliminating them from the collective consciousness, one piece at a time. And there's really just a critical mass, a point that we gain where we can see we don't need, 80% of people to get above the 200 mark for this planet to be moving into an enlightened civilization. Like,
right.
Even though the vast majority of people calibrate under 200, we're still in a positive polarization overall because of the very few of us who are on this seeking journey. And it just becomes like contagious or something, right? The more people that awaken and find empowerment, who rise above this victim consciousness that's prevalent in the world, people see that in you and they go, wow, that person seems to be so free. They're living by like a different rule set than me. And they seem to be more successful. I'd like to find out what they're doing to have that kind of consciousness. And so the next question I want you, Mark, is how do we help people see that all of this pain and injustice and suffering in the world today isn't the truth of what the world really is or who we really are?
Yeah. Well, that's where, our passion and the organization, the program that we created, it's really focused on A Course in Miracles, because that is, as you've described, Aaron, that is a book that calibrates at 600. Its purpose is to bring us to a state of unshakable peace. And when you give yourself to this book and you allow it to be done unto you, the healing journey absolutely is guaranteed, which it is. So basically, just to give a course overview for a moment, the course kind of just says, this is what happened. You're born and created in the perfection of love. That's all you are. That's all you ever will be. But you had a thought about being separate, being other, and that thought about being separate from the love that you are, which is impossible. But the thought alone,
Mhm.
because you have all the power to put your attention where you want, created kind of an illusory alternate reality. We call that the dream of separation. You're not separate from the goodness of life. You're not separate from, call it God, spirit, love, whatever name you choose.
Mhm.
You are 100% that.
Yeah.
So anything other than that, your experiences, the suffering, the pain, the all of that which the world is screaming about, and which admittedly it lives in our mind as thoughts of reality and beliefs, that's the dream. And
Mhm.
so awakening is steering our attention away from all that we've been giving our attention to, all of the suffering, the lies, the not enoughness, the unworthiness, the fear, all of those things which are life taking, which are destructive, moving our attention from there to the truth, back, coming back home. Those are some of the language that's used.
Yeah.
Return home, returning to the kingdom of heaven, returning to the divinity of who and what you are, returning to oneness. All of these things say the exact same thing. And the journey of that is through the practice of forgiveness, through the practice of mind training, through the practice of placing yourself in high calibration spiritual practice. And then it's done unto you. So
Mm.
it's not about you having to figure out every step of the way. It's about putting yourself in the right environments and the right practice with the right people.
Mm.
Game over.
Game over, baby.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what Manifest Awakening is really about. It's about game over.
It's
we
about
want,
game over.
we
But
want
that is the purpose, and you drew it out so well there using that dream analogy. When we look out into the world, which so many of us are doing right now, and saying, "Well, why is there so much corruption and injustice and suffering in the world if we're just love?" And through what you just shared, Mark, the answer is because so many people are still dreaming,
yeah.
right? They're asleep to who they are. And so they're dreaming of separation. And because we're all creators, we are, those people are creating these forms of corruption and injustice, which don't reflect love because they're not ultimately real. And so awakening is really exactly that. It's waking this world up to remember who they are. And I love this quote you pulled out from ACIM that says, by your awakening, you are merely forgetting what you are not. And this enables you to remember what you are. So
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah, yeah, it really is. It really is. So to move to the event that we're really want to invite you to now,
We want you there.
we want you there, and we designed something very specific, four kind of pillars. On day one, we're going to really focus on becoming free from victimization and getting centered in empowerment, true power, which is yours. Day two, we're going to look at releasing any and all belief in division or separation and getting ourselves back to the unity, oneness consciousness in you. Day three, we're going to really get rid of all of that judging, all of that divisiveness of judgment, and get activated in compassion, which is just the heart energy, the healing power that we need and that our brothers and sisters need to really experience there to support them. And then the last day, we're going to focus on releasing fear and really awakening in the peace that passes all human understanding. And it's a pretty simple 4-day program. Each day in the evening before, you're going to get emailed to you the morning guided meditation, which is about 15 to 20 minutes, just whenever you can do it to get yourself anchored in the intention for the day. You'll get a mantra that's specific for that day, which is just a short statement that we really want you just looping, put it on a 3x5 card, just keep it active throughout the whole day, culminating in the evening at 8 p.m. Eastern time with Aaron and myself. And then, as he mentioned, our guest on Michael Beckwith and Danielle Laporte, who'll be joining us too on certain nights, focused on really taking a deep dive into, we give you experiences of it, we'll give you practices, we'll really have that collective amazing experience. And that's also an opportunity for you to share, to ask your questions, so that at the end of these 4 days, our prayers and our knowing for you is that you walk away going, I know who and what I am and what I'm here for. That would be such an amazing awakening. Yeah.
Oh, yes. Yeah, and last year's event was so much bigger and better than we could have imagined. The impact was incredible, and we'd built kind of an amazing community of, I think, about 5,000 people joined us last year. We had a Facebook group for that, and that was just really flourishing for many months after the event. And it created a hunger for this awakening to do the work in the world through doing the work on yourself. And that's the opportunity we're trying to present everyone who's involved in Manifest Awakening this year. Is we're going to give you a 15 to 20-minute meditation in the morning to just prime you, to get you in that mode, especially on what that topic is for that day. Yeah. We're all just kind of honing in our minds and intentions on one topic at a time, again, to create the most powerful ripple effect in the collective that we can. We give you a mantra for each day that's centered around the meditation we're doing, like Mark said, and our private community is already flourishing as well. We have about 1,000 people, I think, in our community on blanking on the name, Mighty Networks. So, when you sign up, you'll get an email that allows you to join that community and start meeting and interacting with other people, which is so cool. And on the 18th of November, day 4, we are going to be reopening registration for Living the Course next year for year 2, which we know so many of you guys are excited about. Obviously, we're super excited about it. We have like 500 people on the waiting list. So don't worry, we will get to that registration at the end of the event. But first, we're going to do the work together. And man, we brought the heavy hitters this year with Michael Beckwith and Danielle Laporte. We're so excited to hear what they have to share, and really just doing a guided experience each night together, just like the stadium effect, right? However many of us can come together and raise our voices, in the metaphysical dimension for this awakening, crying out for an awakening to love on this planet. We're going to be doing some powerful guided experiences together at during the 4 days as well. So a lot to look forward to.
Yeah, for sure. So please join us. Please share it with your friends. Again, the more that come, the more impact we're going to have. And we're grateful for you being here for this talk. We do have a few minutes left. Yeah, Aaron, in case.
We could do some questions if we want.
Yeah, if anyone has a question specifically about the event that maybe we didn't explain well enough, or if there's something else on your mind and heart that you'd like to move forward, we'll do our best.
And if you guys are, while we're waiting for questions to roll in, if you're passionate about this, you want to help Manifest Awakening, you want to do your part, one of the best things you can also do is put this on other people's radar. Anyone who's into this journey of self growth and spiritual growth, who wants to be a part of something like this, please send them the link, send them this video, put this on their radar, because again, like Mark said, the more people we get together, the more powerful effect we can create. And that's really the whole purpose of the event.
Yeah, for sure. Any other thoughts or questions?
Do we have a question box, or do they just type it in the chat?
I think they just type it in the chat. Is that correct, Patrick?
We're on StreamYard now, so like Zoom, StreamYard, YouTube.
Yeah. The time frame, are those figured out? The time windows are large, and I'm not sure when to be available. Thank you, Tanner. Oh, and by the way, someone else posted, love to be a part of it, but I can't. By the way, if you register, it's not about having to be there live. If you register, you will get the video replays. So whether you can attend all of them or you can't attend any of them, you still can be a part of this wave simply by registering. And we'll make sure every day you'll still get the morning meditations, you'll still get the mantra, and you'll still be able to watch the video replay. All of that. All of that is completely free if you register and participate in the event. And what I know is, even though you're not there physically, your intention to be there, do it to the best of your ability, that adds.
There's no time in the spirit, right?
Right. So the only thing that we're doing live in the 4 days is Monday through Thursday in the evening at 8 p.m. Eastern time for about an hour to an hour and a half, where we will do the key teaching, we'll answer your questions, and we'll really deep dive into the focus for the day.
Yep.
So 8 p.m. Eastern time is really the time that you want to see if you can carve out of your schedule in the day to be with us. But again, if not, register anyway and then do it on your own time. We still welcome you. You can still join the Mighty Networks private community. You
Yep.
can still participate and see what other people are sharing. Last year during the Forgive 2020, we had such an active page where people were really sharing and asking
Yeah.
questions, having breakthroughs. And Aaron and I will be there during the day watching and responding and participating there. So there's lots of ways to really put your life into this container for 4 days and watch what happens.
Well said. We have people all over the world, all over the globe joining this. So we understand there are some limitations around time zones and all that. That's why we wanted to make sure no matter what time zone you're in, even if you can't join the live, you can watch the videos any time of day you want and do the meditations first thing in the morning, just as if you're joining the live.
Yes, 11 p.m. in Denmark. That's not too late.
That's not too bad.
Yeah, awesome. Seeing a few questions. I saw one. This is from LL. I just want to acknowledge you because I think I think a lot of people can relate to this. And you said, no matter how much info I ingest about this material, I don't feel like I can have this love, abundance, and peace. I'm not sure how to break out of this and allow. It's like I don't have trust. And number one, I just want to honor you for writing that and for bringing that forward, because I imagine that takes courage, which is at level 200. So you're moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
And I imagine a lot of people can relate to this. So that's why I'm also glad that you bring it forward. This is where my experience, this is why I believe being in spiritual community, being with other people has helped me tremendously
Yeah.
because I read all the books and I would backslide and doing it alone just me with myself for a good stretch of time was just not good company. And those demon thoughts and like it's not for me, it won't work for me, which I came to realize was my way of kind of making myself special in the negative. I'm so special that it's not going to work for me. I had to really take a look at how the ego was really playing the negative approach on me to make
Yeah.
me separate. But the truth is, just showing up, it begins to shift. I've had all those thoughts that you mentioned, and they really shifted by being with people, being in community, practicing together, just showing up and letting it be transformed inside of me. And when I look back, I'm like, where did it go? I don't, I don't know, and I don't care.
Yeah. And I don't know. And I don't care.
But I really feel free from that very thing you mentioned. I promise you that.
Yeah. Yeah. This is the spiritual path. It's what we are is not, it doesn't require any effort. It's so natural. It's so close to you that it's hard to see it sometimes because we have so much noise abstracting our experience of what we are. And so the spiritual journey is really just about continually surrendering what is false every day, letting go of what is unreal, forgiving, and what is real, what is true about you, which is love, will just naturally be there. Like Mark said, it was just there when the illusions were gone. I don't know where the illusions went, but I'm glad they're gone because now I can experience what I really am. So if you're not experiencing what you are yet, if you say, well, I don't experience this love you talk about, ego will try to use that as evidence to say, see, because you're unworthy of it. You don't deserve love. That's why you're not feeling it. If you deserved it, you'd feel it. And it lies to us this way. But I like to use the analogy of that scene in The Matrix. I think it's like the third movie where Neo walks into that white room surrounded by TVs where he gets to talk to the architect. And he's like, oh, there's been a million Matrixes before this one.
Mhm.
Imagine if all those TVs had white noise playing at the same time. You know how absolutely, deafening that would feel. Let's say you and I are there, Mark, and I'm like, Mark, there's a silence behind these TVs underneath the noise. There's a perfect peace. You're like, dude, you're crazy. That's not true. But one TV at a time shuts off and the noise slowly diminishes. And at a certain point, the last TV clicks off and there it is. And you go, wow, it was always there. It was just covered up by so much noise. That's the case for all of us. You are already that, right? You are already perfect and complete, but maybe you have some distortions in your mind, some negative core beliefs, some traumas you haven't healed, some unfulfilled desires in the world, making a lot of noise up there. Well, then it's going to be hard to hear the voice of love, but it
Yeah.
doesn't mean it's not there. It's always there. And
Yeah.
that's what awakening is awakening to that truth.
That is such a good analogy. I think that's awesome. I really do. I'm seeing a couple things come through. Yes, it is free. This is a completely free event. Please, it's our gift to you. To be very candid, we will be selling at the end of the event, or we'll be inviting you to join us for our paid program, which starts in January. But that will simply be an invitation, and you can join it or not. Like, we're not attached to you being a part of it. We'd love for you to join us when you hear about it. But if it's not a match for you to do, then just do this event and let this be a gift to you from us. So please know that. I think that's one of the only ones I saw. And I did see someone post this, and I want to speak to this too. Someone said about not enough time. Time is our biggest obstacle, illusions, when there is no time. I don't know where they're getting at, but I'm going to go to this to say, it's very easy to get super busy in the world and put our spiritual practice in the back burner, put these kind of invitations aside. But honestly, I just want to speak to you truthfully. What that's really doing is just saying yes to another round on the suffering wheel.
Yeah.
And if you need another ride, then go around again.
No
And
shame
then,
in that.
no, there's no judgment. I've probably ridden it more than everybody here. I don't know. It's fine. But wherever you are, if you're at the awakened state, join us and elevate everyone here. If you're just a beginner, make the time. Make the time, because what I've come to realize, and this is a big paradox, when I give my time to my spiritual practice and my devotion, everything else needs less time, and it works
Yeah.
better than ever. It's crazy how that works, and it's true.
Yeah. 100%. Every effort that you make for your own awakening is responded to by the universe, is
Yeah.
noticed by the universe. So when you say, okay, I don't have time to meditate as much as I want, so I'm just going to wake up an hour earlier each day because meditation is important to me. My spiritual development is the most important thing to me. I'm going to, make an hour of time in the evening to read or contemplate or whatever. Every little effort that you make is recognized by the universe. And it's like you take a step towards it, it mirrors you and takes a step towards you. So until you show the universe some kind of effort, you're going to stay in that stagnation typically. So if you're feeling called to this, I promise you, if you make time for it, you're going to get so much of a transformation from this experience. You look back and say, wow, I'm so glad that I made time for this. But the making time, the universe can't do that for you. That's got to be up to you and your free will.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, thank you for joining us here. Thank you for being a part of this conversation. We hope that this inspired you to join us next week. Again, totally free. You can come to what you can. You'll get all of it for your enjoyment if you can't be there. And we'd love for you to be a part of it, and we'd love for you to share it with your friends.
Yep. It's going to be amazing. Can't wait to see you guys there.
Indeed. Indeed. All right, everybody. Peace and love.
We
Thanks,
will
Aaron.
see you next week.
Yes.